The D.C. summit on bird flu scheduled for October will address the threat of a potential bird flu pandemic in humans, which would have a fatality rate between 25 and 50%. We've already seen the intense fear that a pandemic with a death rate of less than 1% can cause. Imagine what a pandemic with a death rate of up to 50% would look like. We'll discuss this and more today on the Endtime Show. Welcome to the Endtime Show. Vince Stigall here with Doug Norvell. We're taking your calls today. The number to join us is 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. We're talking about the bird flu crisis, which could cause mass fear globally. But first, let's consider another pandemic-like fear-inducing series of events. Today, we're pleased to have Philip Patrick from Birch Gold back with us to help sort out what's going on with the U.S. dollar, unemployment, and other hot election year topics. Philip, welcome back to the Endtime Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We've been telling people about how Saudi Arabia did not renew its 50-year petrodollar deal with the U.S. How's that impact the everyday person? Is it only going to increase gas prices, or is there more to it?
There's certainly a little more to it. So the petrodollar since 1971 has been the cornerstone of dollar supremacy. After we removed ourselves from the gold standard, there was nothing guaranteeing global demand for gold. Well, given that 40% of the world's oil is purchased through OPEC, securing the petrodollar essentially guaranteed huge global demand for the US dollar. We've seen now, as you mentioned, Saudi Arabia increasingly willing to start selling oil outside of dollars, essentially in Chinese yuan, which has essentially put an end to the petrodollar monopoly, which has driven demand for the US dollar for so long. Currency's value, since we've been removed from the gold standard, is driven by two things: supply and demand. Well, we've massively been increasing supply. Now we're seeing global demand start to wane for the dollar, and that will affect everything in terms of imports and just the value of our currency in general. So of all of the issues we talk about, this might be the biggest.
Well, another big one that's impacting people all over the place is the unemployment. The jobs report, the last report from last week, it revealed that unemployment is rising. What does this tell us about where the economy is headed?
It is, and listen, the Federal Reserve have a dual mandate, which is to keep inflation at 2% and maintain maximum employment. So the numbers that came out recently, we saw an unexpected climb to about 4.1%. So it's now tied at the highest level since October of 2021. And this isn't a new story. It's been creeping up from 3.4% for about the last 15 months. And what we've been seeing is that a lot of the numbers that were given to us a few months ago are being revised significantly down. For example, non-farm payrolls increased by 206,000, a significant downward revision from the 272,000 that was initially touted. And we've got the Federal Reserve Chair now, Jerome Powell, coming out and saying, well, there's an argument that the numbers may be a bit overstated. So we're starting to see big revisions down. Now, the concern for us is this could be the catalyst for the Federal Reserve, or maybe not the catalyst, but rather the excuse for the Federal Reserves to start cutting interest rates. And if they do that, we could see another surge in inflation. So the numbers weren't good and may have knock-on effects throughout the economy.
Do you think that was rhetoric, or do you think that they'll actually cut those?
I think it's starting to get a little bit more than rhetoric. Look, we saw at the end of the last year, the Fed were getting political, suggesting 3 interest rate cuts this year, even when inflation at the time was 50% above their target. So they wanted to do it. The problem is the inflation reports that followed really didn't give them the excuse. And I think this has given them the excuse to do it. And I think they will. So there's something called a dot plot, which Federal Reserve bank heads, say how many interest rate cuts they think they'll see this year. The dot plot says we will get 1 cut at some point this year, and I think it'll happen. But the big problem with that is it's dangerous. Look at Canada, right? So Canada had the same inflation problem that we had. They were getting a handle on it. They brought inflation down to about 2.2%. Bank of Canada cut interest rates by a quarter point on the back of that, and the next report came in at 3.8%. And I think we risk doing the same thing here, cutting it too early.
Well, after Trump's strong showing in the debate last month, the likelihood of a victory in November is probably higher than ever now. How much of these considerations go out the window at that point if he's reelected?
Look, it's a good question, and in my opinion, and this is sort of stepping into the realm of politics, but I think we need a change, right? If we get 4 more years of Biden, quite frankly, we know what that means. It's $2 trillion deficit spending, massive spending packages, and I think if that happens, we'll be at the point of no return. However, I've always said the only reason Trump must want this is he is on some level a patriot, right? Look, Trump left the market in very strong shape. He left an economy booming. And what he has in front of him today is an almost impossible task, right? So we need him because we got to turn the trajectory of the ship. But if you analyze his policies, he's talking about bringing manufacturing home, reopening pipelines. These things are very important policies long-term for the country. Long term is sort of the operative word. So, you don't flip a switch and pipelines are operational. Onshoring manufacturing will take a decade. So I've always been a believer that whoever gets in 2024 is really going to see the benefit of Trump's 28, is really going to see the benefit of Trump policy. He's going to have a tough 4 years no matter what happens. So I think we've got a tough storm to weather, but it is still a very important election.
Philip, you're a wealth of knowledge. You always share so much information. We appreciate it so much. Given everything you've told us so far, what can the average American do to ensure their savings remain on a firm foundation?
Look, we've talked about a lot of it's a great question. We talked about a lot of the problems. We're talking about global de-dollarization. We're talking about inflation being sticky. We have recessions on the horizon. Physical precious metals in particular work incredibly well in these sort of climates. The same inflation that's eroding our buying power drives the value of commodities up. Look at central banks around the world. They're like us. They're holding US dollars. Those dollars are falling in value. They have in 22, 23, and now the first quarter of 24, they bought more gold than any other years in history. And it's the same premise. They're holding dollars. Those dollars are falling. So they're buying gold because when the dollar falls, gold goes up. So ultimately what applies to them applies to us, of course, just at a smaller scale.
Philip, we always appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks,
God
Philip.
bless you. All of you out there can protect your savings today, like Philip is recommending, by going to birchgold.com/endtime, birchgold.com/endtime. All right, Doug, if you haven't heard, for someone like me, I stay on top of this. I own chickens and ducks, and I'm one of those, what some would call a deplorable, because I get my own eggs and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Wendy messaged me and said I also need to tell everybody out there that she wasn't shutting my chicken coop door either, which I think everyone knew already.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it wasn't her. As far as I know, she wasn't with us on July 4th. She could have snuck over. But
Georgia's an awful long way from Texas.
It is. The bird flu is all over the headlines right now, Doug. And we know from the past, I guess it's been 4 years now, that anytime you start talking about something of this nature, the big media companies, the big technology companies like Facebook, YouTube, all those places where we stream, they don't want you talking about some of these details. So this is where we need your help more than ever. Share the video, heart, comment, let us know what you're thinking. Just comment bird flu and let's see what happens. Maybe they'll love it, maybe they'll hate it, we don't know. But what would it be if 1,000 people commented bird flu and shared the video and just said bird flu? What could happen? Well, join me in the experiment by doing that now. Doug, what do we need to know about this bird flu going around?
Well, I mean, one thing that we know for sure is that the Bible says that in the last days before Jesus comes back that there will be pestilences. Now, we're looking at, Matthew 24 when it talks about all the different things that Jesus says these things are going to happen before he returns. So things like this do not surprise us. What might surprise you is where it could be coming from, where those pestilence could be coming from. We know that, COVID was something that we hadn't experienced before, at least in our lifetime anyway, something to that magnitude where they shut down our economy, they shut down our schools, they shut down our lives really, and had us in lockdown, made you wear a mask. When you were out in public, you weren't even supposed to go out in public unless you were just going out for necessities and things like that. So it sounds like they might be getting ready to ramp up another crisis like we had before with COVID. This time, the bird flu is what they're kind of looking at. Now, there are some people, that have been talking about this for a while. They've called it disease X. So some people are saying this bird flu pandemic that's coming could be disease X. So the way this caught our attention is there are a lot of people talking about a summit that's going to happen this October, Vince, in Washington, D.C. And this is it's not just a national summit. It's not just for the United States, but this is an international summit. So there's going to be people from all over the place coming into Washington in October for this summit. And you're not hearing a lot about the summit right now through our local media, but we're starting to hear it on some of the other channels, on social media, you're hearing about it. And so that's why we wanted to talk about it, because there's some interesting articles that are coming out yesterday and today even on this summit. So very interesting that this is happening, but this one comes from the first one that I would talk to you about is the one from Charisma News. Charisma.com is where this comes from, but it says the D.C. Summit on Bird Flu, scheduled for October 2nd through the 4th, will address the threat of potential bird flu pandemic in humans, which could have a fatality rate, and you talked about it in the tease, between 25 to 50%. I mean, that's huge.
Now, Doug, I don't remember in early 2020 what the proclamations were on the percentages for a death rate. Do you remember that? Or I know where it ended up being.
Yeah, I don't remember what they were saying. I know that they were causing mass panic because, remember, we even did we showed the undercover video of a CNN exec that was talking about they push those numbers every day to keep everybody, freaking out about it. And so we know that it ended up being less than 1% of the population that got that passed from that. And of course, we know COVID was very real. It hit us here, personally too, with Pastor Baxter dying from complications of COVID. So we know COVID was real, but the thing was they were taking the COVID and they were really pushing it. And there were certain people who were in a category that were more susceptible, to it, just like the common
every
flu.
Sickness.
Yeah, just every sickness, you're right.
Doug, they're pumping fear, like you said, so much so I remember a time when I was in the grocery store, me, my wife, at the time we only had 2 children, and there's a lady that approached us because we were standing out like we typically do.
Yeah.
We were unmasked in the store, and that was a big sin back then. You're supposed to wear a mask everywhere. And this lady comes up to me screaming, saying, "I'm a Trump supporter and you should still wear a mask." And I'm like,
wow.
I didn't have on a MAGA hat. I didn't have anything like that on. I'm going, what's Trump have to? I'm just trying to get some apples, lady. Like, get out of our way.
Right.
And she was freaking out on us and yelling. And I'm going, well, if you're so concerned, maybe you should get a little more than 6 feet away from me. But I tried to handle it well. Right. I think I did okay. But I remember that people were so motivated by fear that you would go up to a stranger and communicate like, she doesn't know me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, she had to be full of fear in order to do that. And I do remember all that fear-inducing stuff. And I can't imagine what they may try to do if there is a bird flu that could actually kill up to 50% of the people that get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see. And it's interesting also, Doug, we've highlighted this every election cycle, but we are close to November. And here we are with something that is massive, again, supposedly coming.
Yeah, and from what their own webpage says, and we'll look at some of it here in a little bit, but they're going to have international speakers here. They're going to have experts from all over the world that are going to come in at this summit, and they're going to talk about this. And the topics that they're going to cover, Vince, is that mass fatality management, okay? Surveillance is another one, which is interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Community preparedness, vaccine delivery. So they're already working on vaccines for this, medical countermeasures, and the socio-economic impacts on poultry and livestock industries. Vince, they could actually tell you if a bird flu epidemic were to break out here, or pandemic, they could tell you that you have to kill all your chickens, because that's what they're doing in these chicken ranches. And I saw some video this morning, and so I'm an animal lover. I mean, I'm a hunter also. I like to hunt, but I'm an animal lover, and it's pretty sad what they do when they find out one bird has the bird flu. They kill the entire stock of chicken. That's what the government makes them do, these chicken
So this could be a farm with 100,000 birds.
Yeah.
And they have a contract with Tyson.
Yeah.
And if they have one bird get sick, they've got to kill everything, and then that whole year is a loss for them, and that could put them out of business entirely.
Yeah, and not only that, it's going to induce food shortages for us. You know, because I mean, if there's a limit on that, and this breaks out, they're going to be killing more and more of the chickens. They're going to be killing more cows. They're not going. The cost of milk will go nuts. It'll go skyrocket. The cost of steak. But remember that this is, as we unfold this and look at it, we're going to see who's behind it, and we're going to start to understand a little bit more. So we don't want anybody going anywhere. I know we got to take care of some other things, but we're going to kind of unpeel this onion and let people kind of see who the people are behind this. And once you do, you'll kind of get that aha moment as well, I think. So
the bird flu is not going to impact our First Cup coffee supply, will it, Doug?
It better not.
I hope it doesn't. We'll drive down to Pearland if we have to get a truckload of it.
We will.
I do want to remind you, First Cup, as you know, is a Christian-owned Patriot coffee company. It's the best coffee that you'll ever drink, I would imagine. It's my favorite coffee of all time, Doug. They've got 11 different roasts, each one named after a specific piece of American history. You can get one of those roasts by going to firstcup.com. Use code Endtime to get 10% off. They were impacted by the hurricane recently, but they are back up and running, and you should not experience any delays in your shipment when you go to firstcup.com and use code Endtime. If you subscribe, they'll give you another 10% off. So go there today, use code Endtime, and get up to 20% off firstcup.com. Doug, there's an official brochure for this event, the Bird Flu Summit. Is that the exact name of it? No, the DC Summit, and they're talking about the bird flu there.
Right, and so they have their own webpage for this, and you can see that if you go to their webpage.
Well, Doug, and that's why, that's why this bird flu summit I didn't think was a controversial topic, because I thought this is being talked about everywhere. So if we call the show that, I don't know why it would be a problem with Facebook and all the others. So I guess we'll see.
I guess we will, because you know they do. They do kind of push those things, suppress those things, I guess. But yeah, so this comes from their official page, so you can see that yourself, and you can go look that up if you'd like to see it for yourself. But I wanted to point out specifics. So on this particular page, one of the things that they're talking about is they're talking about breakout sessions. The law enforcement agencies will have this breakout session. It's breakout session 5, and listen to what it covers, okay? This is interesting. Ensuring law enforcement personnel health and safety. So that's not so much. We understand that law enforcement will come in contact with the community. But then safeguarding vaccines and essential goods delivery. This is going to fall on the part of the police department. Okay, safeguarding vaccines and essential goods and deliveries. Managing a surge in crime during the pandemic. Okay, not sure if we had a surge of crime during COVID. I don't think we did. We were stuck at home. Not too many people had home invasions or robberies during that time because we were all home and home is not only where the heart is, but it's where things are to protect your home. So we didn't have a lot of crime happening then, but they're expecting a surge of crime during this pandemic for some reason. The other one is controlling social unrest and public disorder. So that is another thing that makes you wonder what in the world's going on here. What are they planning for? How long are they planning for this to last? One of the things, Vince, I guess that I can understand and I can see with that, with the controlling social unrest, is if there was a shortage of food, if it caused a shortage in eggs, a shortage in chicken, a shortage in meat, steak, hamburger meat, milk, essential things that we need to survive, I could see public disorder that way. I could see people maybe storming grocery stores and trying to take things because they can't afford to buy them, or perhaps, trying to break in other people's homes to get, food and essentials like that. But anyway, this is another weird one. Implementing isolation measures in correctional facilities. Now, what that means, I'm not sure. Some people have said that this could mean that people who push back against whatever their edicts are at that point, or whatever they're trying to make us do and fall into, this is where they will put us. But if you remember, during COVID, also a lot of people were released from prison because they didn't have the means of, when there was an outbreak, of being able to take care of everybody. So they were not keeping everybody in jail, and they were letting criminals out of jail. So maybe that's what that's talking about. So I'm just throwing another idea out there. I've heard people say, no, this is going to be for the correctional institutions, that they're going to put people that won't adhere to what they want you to do. So interesting. That's for the law enforcement. Then you've got the first responders, the fire department. They're going to be, of course, protecting their health and safety also, but then transitioning into all hazard incident management responders. So they're expecting a mass death rate here, to where it's going to be hazardous, and these people are going to be managing that. Now remember, during COVID, Vince, they would say that there were trucks that they would bring up, the frozen trucks, and they were putting bodies in there because so many people were dying from COVID, and maybe that's what this is talking about as well. Then it says also conducting mass vaccination efforts and enforcing quarantine measures effectively. So they're already setting up the idea of quarantining people, just like with COVID. And they're going to enforce it this time. They're going to use first responders for that, not just the fire department, but all first responders will be, meant to enforce these quarantine measures effectively.
Now you're saying they're going to.
Yeah.
Now, is that the proposal, or you're
well,
proclaiming
these breakout
that will
sessions
happen?
are talking about doing it. So I'm believing that they're going to enforce these things, and this is what they're talking about. Now, remember, this is international, Vince. It's not just here in the United States, where we have different rights because of our Constitution than other countries have. But remember what they were doing to people in Australia. Remember the lady that we covered a story and even showed the video of her getting arrested for not staying quarantined, and they put her in a facility there, into a little apartment type complex in a containment area, where she was locked away and she was contained there. There was also, I think, one of their football stars, their soccer stars, that had gone out to look at some property, remember? And even though he was like an athlete and everything, and a wealthy guy that was just going out to look at property, he's by himself. He got caught by the police, and they put him in jail because he was out of his home. So I would imagine that they're going to enforce those same type of things on us. So,
Doug, do you think Amish will get the bird flu?
Well, Vince, the Amish community was not affected too much by the COVID outbreak. So
and they have a lot of birds.
Yeah. So
I'm from kind of Amish country.
You are.
Not quite Pennsylvania, but
no.
We had a lot of Amish where I'm from in Indiana, and they didn't get sick very often for some reason.
No, and so I don't know. I can't answer that question because I don't know, but I know from past experience they did not get hit with the COVID epidemic.
Well, let us know in the comments. What do you think? Will the Amish get bird flu? Yes or no? Let us know. All right, Doug, what's next?
Yeah, so page 2 of this is a breakout session 11, and this is interesting because it talks about certain things here. That's what page 2 looks like. It's up there for you. It talks about the emerging approaches to vaccine development, so talking about the vaccine again, advancements in the influenza vaccine strategies, goes through all that, but then it says enhancing, this is what I really wanted you to see, they've got it in red for you there, enhancing global surveillance networks for timely response. So global surveillance, that's one of the things we talk about all the time, and if you remember, Yuval Noah Harari made a comment. He is like the top advisor to Klaus Schwab at the WEF, and he made a comment that we would look back at COVID as a time where surveillance went under the skin. And remember, they were talking about the vaccine and rolling out the vaccine. Surveillance going under the skin is what we remember about COVID, and now this is talking about enhancing global surveillance networks for timely responses. So more and more of our freedoms and just our peace of mind are going to be disappearing because they're going to be doing surveillance on you. Remember, even Vince, they had people telling on their neighbors if they had a gathering of 10 or more people.
Yes.
During this time. So even getting your neighbors to report you, very interesting.
Doug, remind everyone out there again where they can go to read this. I know it's from a website. I don't know where that is. Is
yeah, and I'm
the DC Summit website?
Yeah, no, it's not the DC Summit. It's on the bottom of that page right there.
In the fine print.
It is in the fine. Syllabusx.com is what
I'll try
to
find it and we can share
And so
it.
if you go to syllabusx.com, you can pull this up, and the guys left it in the format that it looks like on their page so that you would know you're on the right page when you get there. Now, page number 3 quickly before we hit this break. This is one thing that I just want to wrap up before we get to the break, is they're talking about already effective counter, mis, and disinformation that they want to fact check and debunk and monitor response to misinformation utilizing digital platforms and social media channels. So more and more censorship, and remember what we went through with the COVID epidemic and the dirty dozen that they kicked off of.
We need to talk about the dirty dozen more on the other side of the break, so don't go anywhere. We are taking your calls. The number to join us is 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. We'll be right back.
A voice spoke to me and said, I've got something I want to show you. I was so sure God had talked to me. And I was stunned on what I saw.
A direct fulfillment of this over 2,500-year-old prophecy. The United States will stand with Israel.
Why haven't I ever seen this before?
1/3 of humanity will die. What do these beasts symbolize?
The lion, the bear, the leopard.
The combined beast from Revelation 13 represents the end-time government of the Antichrist. Understanding the end time.
Now streaming on Endtime Plus and available to order at endtime.com/UET. Go to endtime.com/UET or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the Endtime Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. Open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. I do want to remind you that Doug and Tina, not Dave and Jana, Doug and Tina will be in Bunkie, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Your wife said y'all will be getting funky and bunky.
Well, we are going to be teaching the Understand the End Time 1 through 14, so it might get funky. And
You never know. Hopefully, maybe you can wear bell bottoms to the conference.
Maybe so.
That
Platform
conference
shoes.
is July 13th, July 14th. Doug will be teaching there. It's definitely one you want to attend. If I remember correctly, Bunkie is in between Alexandria and Lafayette or Shreveport.
No, it's Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Yeah.
So if you are anywhere near there, you definitely want to make plans to come out and attend. You can go to endtime.com/events to learn more about the conference and the venue and specific details. You don't have to RSVP, but it is free, and seating is available first come, first serve, so you can get a front row seat and get to meet Doug and Tina. And what's day 2? Is it question and answer?
Yeah, day 2 will be a prophecy update with question and answer.
So like a Q&A, and people will be able to ask you anything they want.
Well,
right there in front of everybody.
Pertaining
Sure.
to Bible prophecy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe not anything.
Yes, for sure. We're talking about the bird flu and what is potentially coming. There's a summit that's happening in D.C., an international summit.
Right.
And they're discussing a variety of different things. Doug, we were reading from a brochure on the show about the event. I told everyone I would get the link and share it. In the break, I got the link. I've tried to share it in Facebook, and literally as the intro music was playing, I get a pop-up that says, you can't share this link.
Wow. Very interesting.
Facebook puts a pop-up up and says that, and they say, your content couldn't be shared because this link goes against our community standards.
Wow.
So I am sorry, you will not be able to see it if you're in the Facebook chat.
Wow.
Perhaps we can get it posted on our website.
Yeah.
And that way everyone can access
Yeah,
it.
maybe
So
we'll be able to.
check out endtime.com. We will try to get it posted there. I think YouTube allowed us to do it, but Facebook will not allow it. For some reason,
Very
that link
interesting.
specifically goes against the community standards.
Interesting.
Yes. So I guess we should keep telling people what the brochure says then,
Yeah,
because
well-
they apparently don't want people to know.
Yeah, so those brochures, I mean, we've got that information there for you. We went through that and showed you on screen there. Now, what I'd like to do is move in. We've got a few videos that I
Yes.
want to show, because this, I said at the beginning when we started talking about this, that we will kind of peel that onion back and look at people who have been talking these points up. So you want to go to our first video?
Sounds good.
All right.
You know, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, you know, I'd say is will get attention this time.
We know what's next. We're going to have zoonotic influenza illness. So, you know, put your tray tables in the upright position and your seats forward and your seatbelts on, because this is unfortunately a new wave of pandemics is going to be upon us.
I'm obviously most worried about bird flu, but in the laboratory, I could make it highly infectious for humans in months, because it's been published the 5 amino acids that I need to change. And so I don't think that research should be done. That's the real threat. That's the real biosecurity threat, that these university labs are doing these bio experiments that are intentionally modifying viruses. And bird flu, I think, is going to be the cause of the great pandemic.
Okay, so very interesting, because the gentleman there at the end is from the CDC, and he said that they are doing gain-of-function research on this, where they're 5 amino acids away from giving this to where it is spread from animal to human. So the thing is, Vince, is that we have reports of human bird flu already, and one of them's here in Texas. And I think the other 3 or the other 2 are in Colorado. We'll look at that here in a little bit, because we're going to look at some stuff from the CDC. But the thing about it is, they've been talking about this for a while, and you saw that Bill Gates was talking about it at the beginning, and he made the comment that this next big one is coming, that it'll really get everybody's attention. makes you wonder, how does he know these things? And then when you get the guy from the CDC that's saying, well, we know it's going to be bird flu. They've been talking about this for quite a while, Vince. This isn't something new that just popped up. They've been discussing this for a while, and like he said, they've been doing gain of function for it. So remember, too, that the WEF, their plans were for us to have synthetic meats, to be eating bugs that are grown, to get rid of cows, and that you wouldn't be able to eat steak and things like that anymore. They want to completely get rid of cows because they believe that when a cow passes gas, that it's causing the earth to warm up. So there's too many cows on the earth because their gas heats the earth up. So anyway, this is real stuff, folks. This is real stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm getting things set in my ear right now. It's important that we see that. But this second video is going to show us a little bit more of who's talking about it. So very interesting. You want to see it?
Gates Foundation gave $9.5 million to UW-Madison and principal investigator Yoshihiro Kawaka to modify H5N1 viruses to preferentially recognize human-type receptors and transmit efficiently in mammals. The current USDA Deputy Chief of Staff is a former Gates Foundation Senior Program Officer for Private Sector Partnerships. Her former employer wishes to transition meat consumption to 100% synthetic. In 2023, the USDA approved Bill Gates-backed laboratory-made chicken created by Upside Foods. Serial passage, gain of function of H5NX clade 2.3.4.4 viruses in mallard ducks is currently underway at the USDA Southeast Poultry Research Laboratory in Athens, Georgia. We are highly suspicious that H5N1 clade 2.3.4.4b, genotype B1, may have leaked or was released from the USDA Southeast Poultry Research Laboratory, leading to the current outbreaks.
You see what that video was saying, that this gain of function research has been done, and now they believe that it's leaked out of this lab in Florida, and it has spread into these poultry farms and also into some dairy farms with the cows. And so they're saying that they're highly suspicious of this. So it appears like this could be something that's going on. You saw the connection between the Gates Foundation and the president that's running the show there. So it's very important to kind of see who's behind the scenes on this. And even Klaus Schwab had made, a comment about, he believed that this was where we're going, that there's going to be a pandemic, and that it was going to cause the world to kind of go into chaos and cause all kinds of problems. So remember, he's also the one that wrote The Great Reset, the COVID pandemic and The Great Reset. And so this guy, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to the plans that they have for things. So very interesting that this information is coming out. So the question that I asked from that is, okay, so how would we prepare? So we didn't really see.
Just to clarify, when you asked that question, how do we prepare? What we're answering here, what we're about to play, is not, I guess, all of the above solution. We're not going to provide how to prepare spiritually in this next clip, or even how to respond emotionally or whatever. This is specifically about preparing for the bird flu coming, and it's going to be from a perspective that's not biblical necessarily.
Right.
It's not anti-God, but it is. Well, I guess we should show people and then explain, eh?
Yeah. Well, it's coming from the medical field. So it's how you can prepare medically, I guess, for this.
From a medical professional who doesn't go with the flow.
Right. Right. Yeah, we can definitely say that. So yeah, let's check out the video, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Number 6, the importance of being prepared. As if we've learned nothing in the last 4 years, it's difficult to predict how these things are going to play out, especially when we're talking about the wild card of human manipulation and agency. Tell us about the importance of being prepared.
Our analysis right now, John, and no one really knows what's going to happen, but I think this is the best distillation, that preparedness for bird flu is not animal vaccination. It's not human vaccination. It's not hazmat suits or masks. It's actually being prepared if one has direct contact or gets sick with highly pathogenic avian influenza. We're talking about dilute iodine nasal sprays and gargles every 4 hours. A very dilute iodine drop can be made at home that's safe. And because we know the eyes have been a source of acquisition of the virus, at least in the small number of human cases so far, which have been non-serious. We have oral antivirals like Tamiflu and 3 others, even an intravenous one, and the ability to cover for secondary infections with antibiotics. We've never had a human death of bird flu in America. That's because we have very good treatments for influenza. I believe the stated previous human mortality rate from avian influenza largely is a reflection of very poor standards of medical care in Southeast Asia, where most of the cases have arisen, John. So preparedness, again, means the use of nasal sprays, gargles, drops as a way to, in a sense, neutralize the virus after contact and reduce the viral burden with infection. And then we move on to standard of care influenza treatment.
So Dr. Peter McCullough is discussing ways that you can prepare medically for this. He also says that there's not a cause for a lot of fear, because he says that we haven't had someone die from the bird flu. Now, it's a flu and people die from the flu, and normally people die from the flu that already have congestive heart failure or problems with breathing, respiratory problems and things like that already. But he has given some advice there about how to look at it and trying not to spread fear. Now, he was one of, I think, the Dirty Dozen. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And
blacklisted, lost his job.
Yeah.
Multiple jobs, and he stood up against the COVID vaccine and was treated very poorly from that. And watching that video has caused my nose to itch so much, Doug. I feel a sneeze coming on, but I'm trying not to do it. So forgive me if I keep rubbing my nose.
Yeah, he was also one that talked about ivermectin. He was one that talked about hydrochloroquine. He still, says that these are very good drugs that we should use. Remember, the media tried to really just dog that and run it in the ground and tell people that they were crazy, that this was a horse dewormer and all these things. Well, Dr. McCullough, along with other physicians who were blacklisted, made those comments and said, look, this is what we need, and it turns out that was true. And now we're seeing there are reports from the medical field that are going, wow, ivermectin really did help this. Hydrochloroquine really did fight COVID. And so anyway, this is someone who was telling us the truth during the COVID, as opposed to maybe another little small guy that was telling us things that weren't so true.
Well, and they actually know each other. And actually, Dr. Peter McCullough is from here in the Dallas area. Maybe we should try to get him on the show, Doug.
We definitely should try to do
If you want to see Dr. Peter McCullough on the Endtime Show, comment DOC, D-O-C. See what we can do to make it happen, DOC. Put it in the comments. We've got a break here we've got to go to. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
They that understand what is taking place will instruct many.
Except a man is born again, he can enter or see the kingdom of God.
I don't care what label you've been given or what label you've given yourself, you are essential. You still matter.
This is a journey, and when we get to the other side of that, that's where our prize is, that's where our reward is.
End time is not going anywhere.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. We have open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. I do want to remind you to go to endtime.com/summer. We have a number of different sales available right now, including Understanding the End Time, the 14 DVD series, available for a donation of any amount. So if the Lord tells you to give $22, that'll be enough, Doug. It doesn't matter. Whatever the Lord tells you to give is what we want you to give. Some might give $5,000, some might give $100. We're leaving that up to you and the Lord. So go to endtime.com/summer. You'll see a number of deals there, including that one, along with Understand the End Time book. Every book that goes out of here during the month of July is going to be signed by Dave, and he's been signing away. And man, how many boxes do you think we can get him to sign by the end of the month, Doug?
I don't know, but he had a full box yesterday.
How old is Dave? Is he 57?
He's 56. I'm 57.
56.
He's 56.
What if we get him up to 56 boxes? That'd be fun. For him, to talk about.
It'll be fun, yeah, for us until he tries to get a hold of us. And we better be running.
Yeah, so endtime.com/summer, a number of good deals there, including Dave's newest book, Understanding the End Time, and the DVD series. So check it out there. Doug, are we ready to go to the phones?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, before we do, I'm so stunned by,
Okay.
I put Doc in there. Dave says he's only 55, so
yeah,
he might be 45 if he's trying to reach that box number.
56 next month, so that's why I said he's 56.
Ah, gotcha.
He's just trying to short himself there.
Gotcha. All right. I was so stunned when I said put Doc in the comments if you want Dr. Peter McCullough on the show. Man, it blew up. I didn't realize how many people were following him that are in our audience.
All
So go over to Dr. McCullough's social media accounts and let him know that he needs to join the show. We'll try to make that happen. Again, open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. We're going to Texas now. Tom, welcome to the End Time Show.
Hi, Vince. How you doing today?
We're better than we deserve.
Well, that's good, Brother Vince. And my question to you is, do you believe this bird flu is going to cause another lockdown in America? Do you think America will go through another lockdown with this bird flu, Vince?
You know, I don't know that we can predict that, Tom. It's possible, but I have no idea. Well, you know, Vince, it's interesting that they're doing this in October, and of course the elections are in November. Right. And COVID came out and it forced people to be at home. It forced them to do mail-in ballots and things like that. Could this be something that, you know, could happen? We don't know. Like you said, we can't really predict that, but it does. From what their breakout sessions are, Tom, it does look like that could be what they want to try to do. I don't know if the American people would fall for it again.
Well, and that's where I'm coming from. I'm like, I can't imagine, with all the new information we have now, all the things that have been proven wrong, anybody going along with it. Now, I've been surprised before, so
yeah,
I don't know. Do you need to go stock up on toilet paper and all that? You might need to do that.
Yeah, you always need to be stocked up on toilet paper. Probably.
Yeah, but I guess we'll see, Tom. It's one of those, let's wait and see.
All right, well, thank you so much, Doug and Vince. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Tom.
God bless you.
You know, Vince, the hurricane that just happened down in Houston is a good example of why we tell people be prepared.
Yes.
You know, why we talk to you about making sure you're prepared for emergencies, because we live in a time where there's emergencies that could happen in all kinds of different ways. And so it's important to be stocked up on that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we're ready to go to the phones again?
Let's do it.
Open lines, 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. I did get informed that we are working on getting that brochure posted on endtime.com, so be sure to go there since we can't post it on some social media accounts due to it violating community standards. This must be why YouTube says that our content is harmful for viewers. And so in response to that, we put up code YouTube at watch.endtime.com so you can access Endtime Plus for less than $6 a month. But nonetheless, they won't let us share this link on the bird flu for whatever reason. So we're trying to get it posted to endtime.com. We are going back to the phones now. We're going to Missouri. Mark is watching there. Mark, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Hey, brothers.
Hey.
Hey, Mark.
Haven't heard from you for a while, or haven't been on here for a while.
I know.
I
I was going to call you big timer. You must be so popular you can't call us.
Big timer, yeah, right. Hey, I could have my own show.
There you go.
That's what I hear.
I have before, but, that's another topic. But anyhow, you were talking about chickens. They actually had some outbreak. I think it was in Mexico at a plant, and they had to kill like 2 million chickens. So it's not good for chickens for sure.
No doubt.
Well, and that's one of the things too, Mark, that we're talking about with the WEF being involved in this, is because if they can cause a food crisis and then make people have to be counting on the government to get our food and things like that, well then that's another way for them to have control over people. So it's just interesting to kind of hear the things that are being floated around out there, but then to hear it from their voices about they're creating this stuff in labs. My question is, why are they even creating it in labs?
Well, supposedly they're doing it so they can come up with vaccines. That's the whole idea behind it, But my deal is, I guess crickets don't let off a lot of gas, but who says there won't be some kind of cricket food?
Right.
I'm trying to be funny, right? But they could come up with some kind of dumb excuse to screw with the elections, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The election variant, as some call it. Mark, we always enjoy hearing from you. I'm sorry?
I said we can't talk about that because YouTube might not like it.
Well, YouTube and everybody else. We appreciate hearing from you, Mark, as always. God bless you. Thank you so much for your call. Doug, we're talking about the bird flu.
Yeah.
I want people just to put the bird emoji, the chicken emoji in the comments. Let's see who all out there is following along with that. We shared the brochure. We're trying to get that up on endtime.com as we speak. We showed the videos of the various people, including Dr. Peter McCullough, talking about how to be prepared.
Yeah.
What do we need to cover next?
Well, the CDC put out a response on the 5th of July, and they said on this report, they just talked about there has been a multi-state outbreak of this bird flu. They call it H5N1 virus in dairy cows and other animals in the U.S. They also said that there are 4 human cases right now. So I was thinking it was 3 earlier, I think I said, but there are 4 according to this report. One of those is in Texas, which was at a dairy farm where he was exposed to sick cows, and he's the one that got it from the cows. So there's been other cases in Colorado as well. They're saying that, like I said before, and there's a video out there that we didn't show today that I could have shown, how they're taking care of these animals. Once they find out 1 or 2 have it, they destroy the whole herd or the whole chicken coop there, and they do it in some pretty inhumane ways, which would probably make a lot of animal activists and animal lovers really get upset about that. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we remind people of with this happening, remember this WHO pandemic treaty that they wanted to pass back in May that didn't pass again. It's the second time they brought this up. Now, there have been some things that they've been able to do through that, but they didn't get it fully implemented the way they wanted to. I want to just kind of remind you, this comes from the WEF's page, the World Economic Forum's page of the WHO and that pandemic treaty. I just want to share with you 2 things out of some of the points that they have on their page. And this is what it says, which is interesting if you remember what the summit page said. It says the pact would include provisions for sharing data, funding research and development, and responding to outbreaks. That's exactly what this summit is about that's going to happen in October. It also says it would also include provisions for strengthening surveillance and early warning systems for building up stockpiles of medical supplies. So part of what they want to do with this pandemic treaty is being implemented at this summit. That's what they're going to be talking about, how to implement these things. One of the crazy things about this on the WEF's page is that it says that there's backlash coming from countries because they believe that it would allow the WHO to take away our sovereignty and be able to push things on the government. And so they said that that's not going to happen. That's not what part of this is. But then it does say in one of the paragraphs that I put in the notes there, it says it's not clear of what is going to happen if measures are not followed, but co-chairs talk about preferably having a peer review process rather than sanctions on non-compliant states. So that to me sounds like they would be taking away your sovereignty if you didn't comply. But anyway, that's just me. So I just wanted to remind everybody that this is also tied into that, and that's what these two are talking about. This summit in October and this WHO pandemic treaty kind of line up with one another.
If you are against the WHO pandemic treaty, put no WHO in the comments. Let us know. We're going to Virginia now. James is watching there. James, welcome to the Endtime Show. James, are you there?
Well, actually a comment, I guess. This bird flu has happened before. If I'm not mistaken, they've had I mean, I've heard of it in the past. Am I correct on that?
You are, and it has happened among the birds and been even in some humans. As Dr. McCullough talked about, some of the cases before had happened in Asia, where they don't have a lot of medication that they can use to fight against those things. And some of the humans that have gotten sick through this have died in Asia in the past. As far as here in the United States, he said that we haven't ever had anybody die from it, any human die from it.
But something else I wanted to talk about, mainly, they don't know where it comes from, but is it mainly in the wild birds? Like, most people don't handle, we don't get in contact with wild birds or nothing like that at all. So that's my question. How will it spread to
human beings? Well, James, I don't think Doug or I know the answer to that, but if we can get Dr. McCullough on here, maybe he'll help explain all that. We do appreciate your call today. God bless you very much. Doug, we were quickly running out of time. I wanted to be able to give you the last words today. How do we wrap a show up like this where we're talking about the bird flu that's coming and the fear that's going to come along with that potentially?
Yeah, well, I mean, remember, Vince, that the Bible tells us that the Lord doesn't give us a spirit of fear, okay? And one of the things that it says that he gives us there is a sound mind, right? And so we have to keep a sound mind. We have to keep our, we got to keep our minds on God. We got to follow the Word of God. We've got to have a relationship with the Lord to not be afraid of these things, because ultimately Jesus is our hope in everything. And there's going to be things. Jesus told us there's going to be pandemics in the end time.
Yes.
The thing is he told us not to fear and to concentrate on the things that he asked of us to do. And so one of the things he said was that this kingdom, the gospel, shall be preached into all the world, and then the end shall come. And of course, one of our favorite scriptures in Matthew chapter 6 says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you."
So it doesn't matter what type of pandemic is coming. It doesn't matter anything. No matter what type of messaging is going out, you can look to Jesus and you can have hope and you can have peace. Oh, I got to ask you one more time in the comments one thing. If you love Jesus and you are motivated by what he is motivated by, put Jesus is my one source. None of this other stuff is going to cause you to step to the side, but you're going to continue forward with God, your God-given purpose. So put Jesus as my one source. Let us know where you stand. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to go to endtime.com and watch.endtime.com. There's thousands of hours of content available for totally free because of generous partners like you that give every single month at endtime.com/give. We'll see you right back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time.